Hello and welcome back to Bites, Bread, and Barbecue. I wanted to make a small addendum to my earlier video where I was discussing desktop environments. I had done a video comparing LXQt and XFCE as lightweight Linux desktop environments that could be used to revive older computers. I had done this in comparison to Gnome, which is the most popular desktop environment for Linux in the United States, where I live. However, when researching this, I found statistics show that KDE is the most widely used desktop environment for Linux globally. And I was curious as to how the memory components would compare when we stacked them next to Gnome, LXQt, XFCE, and KDE, the most popular desktop environment. So I redid my chart that compares some of the benchmarks for these particular desktop environments. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to show here that we have with Gnome, I took each of these machines and gave them 8 gigabytes of RAM, 5 CPUs, and a 25 gigabyte hard drive. And I launched them each in a virtual machine, and then with nothing else running on my computer, ran them to see what kind of statistics we would get for each of these. So if we look at Gnome, we can see that the CPU events that are given by Sysbench gave us 12,943 compared to LXQt, which was 13,000. XFCE was also 13,000, about the same. And surprisingly, KDE was the most with 13,334. I also looked, when we tested the CPU, at the latency max. And if you'll notice, Gnome had the highest latency, which means it was slower than the other environments. Interestingly, KDE came in with a racing 1.68 milliseconds with this setup. It actually beat out CPU computations on the two lighter weight environments. The memory, when I tested Sysbench with memory events, they were all pretty similar. Gnome gave us 54 million, LXQt gave us 55 million, XFCE was also 55 million, KDE again, pumping it up over 56 million memory events. And the latency max for the memory, we can see that the lighter weight environments here did almost have the memory latency for each of these tests. You can see that Gnome was 0.61 and KDE was 0.67, so the two heavy environments definitely had more memory latency, whereas the lightweight ones had 0.33 and 0.34, almost the exact same thing. And we moved on to HTOP, and we did our memory out of 8 gigabytes. How much did just the environment use? HTOP is telling us that in Gnome, it was 658 megabytes. LXQt was 388, the lightest. Very, very lightweight. So this means that you could run this on an older machine with less memory. XFCE came in at a respectable 504. KDE was the total bloat. It had 1.8 gigabytes of RAM that it consumed just to run the environment from the basic installation. But what I did notice was when we looked at the load average, once the desktop environment was loaded, how quickly things load into that space. Gnome, as expected, came in slow, 0.72. The two lightweights, pretty quick, 0.48, and XFCE at 0.37. But get a load of KDE, no pun intended with load average, 0.12. This is blindingly fast. So maybe it's loading something into memory that's helping it become more efficient afterwards. It does take up more memory on the front end, but it definitely was loading things quicker into HTOP. Finally, with Neofetch, pretty much what we expected, similar numbers from the HTOP. Gnome had 673 megabytes of our 8 gigs, LXQt 341, XFCE again respectable at 524, but KDE was 1.8 gigabytes of RAM, really significantly more. So I just wanted to update that and say that I did test the most popular Linux environment globally to see, and I was really surprised by the HTOP numbers, although it does consume the most amount of memory going in up front. So thanks for stopping by. If you found this helpful, please hit the subscribe button down below, and saying goodbye from Bites Bread and Barbecue.